and then I just start spinning like a Beyblade in my room
Yeah.
and like knock over
Welcome
all two
to.
things that I own.
Well, you wouldn't expect Beyblades to own that much, to be honest with you. At least I wouldn't.
What is the most dangerous form of a Beyblade? Like, what could you do to a Beyblade without like inhibiting its functionality, but make it incredibly dangerous?
Well, what was that like one where they were like metals and then they set it on fire?
Yeah, but I feel like that doesn't work outside of the arena that they made though. I guess you
What,
could
just a
I
metal
guess you could
bowl?
deck it out in all of the gear that the dwarves are wearing in the Skull Crusher DLC.
Wow.
I don't even like that segue because that's not what I want to talk about first. Did you now? Okay, I want to ask you about the term segue. How do you think that term is spelt?
SEGWAY.
I like that you almost fucked that up, but yeah, right? Because if no one's ever explained it to you, you would make the very reasonable assumption that it's talking about the mode of transportation that is a Segway, because it's transporting from one topic to another. Turns out it's not that at all. It's actually some French word spelled Segue.
Segway.
Yeah, and I got so fucking angry when I found that out because some cunt just decided to do that. All right, that's what I feel like happened. It's like this is so clearly. I'm not even saying like the origins of it are like like the vehicle. I don't hesitant to call it a vehicle, but it is a vehicle. I don't know if that's the origin of it, but it fucking should be because anyone who's ever heard that term should assume that. And I'm starting to realize maybe they don't. Maybe more people know this than I realize, but I don't see why they should because it's not the kind of words you see written out very often. So it makes perfect sense to think of it as the vehicle because it's like transporting from one topic to another. That is literally every time anyone uses that term, it's like, oh, what a segue. I think of a fucking segue because that's what's happening. We're being moved from one topic to another. Oh, it makes me feel like such a mug.
Yeah, but it didn't cost an extortionate amount of money, so
Makes me feel like such a
it's not
mug.
really. Oh, you can't keep it up with these segues.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to start with the mug because it's kind of a little bit funny, and obviously I didn't actually cover it explicitly. And also, if I'm not mistaken, you don't know nothing about it, so perhaps you could introduce this
I know that it's
topic.
overpriced, and like they're also not going to be getting exactly what they asked for at the same time.
Yeah, so the
Like,
Kickstarter Abyss Bar mug situation.
yeah.
What would you call it? Muggate.
I think the problem is, Deeprock has allured a group of people who value, money, like money. Like they like, they don't want to overspend on shit, right? They don't spend tons on microtransactions and bullshit gaming. They support the industry in a healthy way. Because Ghost Ship can do that within the boundaries of their own game. But the outer world is not as kind.
And he's not
With
talking about
it
the
because
Obsidian
this isn't
game.
the first. No, this isn't the first time something like this has happened, right? Like,
Exactly, it's not,
not
is
even
it?
close.
Well, not even
No.
close. I mean, obviously, the other example is the board game. There's been some fiascos with that, but was there more than that?
Yeah, I think. I mean, well, yeah, the board game was the big one. But
But that like indicates like a
I think
Kickstarter
even
issue.
just the original, like the merch stuff, I think was a bit pricey. Some people said, like, like for Crimson keychains, it was like 30 quid.
It is, but you obviously use the word original. But do you actually also mean the recent merch stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is quite pricey, and I think that is because, um, I mean, I don't want to make guesses that very clearly like expose my complete absence of knowledge on these kind of matters, right? But I'm kind of going to have to because I just have to assume that this stuff is more expensive than people realize when you actually want it to be high quality as well. And it involves more people than you realize. It involves the payment of the people making it. It involves the payment of the shipping and all these things. They probably are shipping as well a bit more, like, not necessarily completely privately, but a bit more intentionally as well. Not just forking it over to like the general like postage system either. I mean, there's a little bit more care taken even on the distribution side, and obviously Go Ship themselves get a cut as well. And all these things. In fact, even then, the manufacturers, they probably have to pay for like materials and things like that as well. And it's like when you really break it all down, you can see why it becomes expensive. But I think the mugs, there is the aspect of a difference between what's expected anyway, where it's like, I think most people expect them to be metal as well, and they're not metal.
Yeah.
They're plastic, quite like well made still, and they're going to be upgraded. They're going to be patched. They literally called it like a patch for the mugs to be microwavable as well. And I think Axis Chronos did make quite a good video about this, but he talked about how like metal ones would be going for like quite a lot more money, and that would be expected for metal ones, to be honest, is what he said. And that's probably true. But it's just a little bit weird. There's also the thing that the main thing I guess was like the colors of the mugs, and he points out, Axis Chronos points out how this information was technically available, but I think he also said, and I would very much also agree with this. This is the kind of thing that needs to be pointed out very clearly, where the other colors for the mugs were part of a further tier, and that meant if you bought the version that contained multiple mugs at this current moment, before these certain tiers were reached, you're just getting 4 of the same color. And that's a bit strange. I feel like that should be like really, really powerful, like strongly disclosed, especially like when you're going through the purchasing process. And I know that obviously what people do with their money is their responsibility, but that's not the nicest way to look at it. I think, you know, when you're selling a product, you should be very clear about what people are getting. And clearly, it wasn't clear enough if a substantial number of people have bought this version and unexpectedly gotten like 4 of the same mug. I will say, it's the best one. They started with the Pots of Gold mug, and the others I can barely really even tell. I'm not even sure if they're actually like that specific. I think they are, but they all look a lot more similar than I realised. But, you know, so they start with the Pots of Gold, which is the best one. So I won't be too mad about getting 4 Pots of Gold mugs. As long as you've got, like, you know, people to give them to, I guess. But it was still a slightly strange thing to happen, and I don't know if this actually does represent a Kickstarter thing. Aren't there some, like, weird feelings about Kickstarter in general, I feel like? And sort of the reliability of those projects? It definitely feels like a thing.
Kickstarter and other things like it, they ask for money for products that aren't there and aren't real. So, you know, it's basically just we'll give you money for the hopes that this product will actually come out. And sometimes, often, kind of, it doesn't. And Kickstarter does very little to help. I don't think it has many like things in place to like actually ensure people get their money back when the thing turns out to be a scam. I think a lot of people just get left in the dark and get screwed over.
No. It's just, I hate to use the words in relation to this, but does it feel like technically like a scam? If you know what I mean? I mean on a very technical level as well. But I guess it really depends on how... I would have to read the Kickstarter page quite closely, I suppose. And I'm not going to do that. So maybe we should actually steer clear of labelling this as a scam. I don't think that's fair at all. But clearly, when it comes to these projects...
If people pay money and the product isn't what they paid their money for, they got scammed.
But it also...
Right?
So it isn't a scam because they technically did disclose all this. So, you know...
Yeah, but also no, right? Isn't the picture on the thing all 4 mugs?
Yes,
different
Yes,
mug.
the picture on the like to buy the 4 mug version, the 4 mug package is that when you're
Oh,
buying
4
that,
different
the
mugs.
description of that product doesn't indicate. I don't think that like those mugs are like the colors are tier based, like are based on tiers that aren't unlocked yet.
Yeah,
So
and
it's only
I remember
disclosed by the
watching the
fact
stream.
that the tiers exist, right? That you can look at the tiers and see that, but that's not disclosed
Yeah,
in the
they
actual way you buy that like package. um,
displayed like um like all 4 different mugs, which turns out isn't like the case right now, and it might never be, right? I mean, they're not 100% going to reach that mark, are they?
no, I guess I could
And
actually look at
then
this.
you will hear about it, right? Like when all these people that have spent probably more money than is reasonable on a couple cups get the same mug 4 times, they will be annoyed, and they will be the people who would have spent the most, and there goes even more goodwill. Um,
Yeah,
like,
I'm trying to find how this works. I'm actually on the page for it. Our stretch goals. Okay. Oh my goodness. So, okay, it starts the mug the third four the second, third, and fourth mug colors start at 700,000 euros, but and go up to 1 million for the final color, right? And the current pledge overall is five. £549,000, which is, I guess, is pretty similar in euros. I don't know if it's more or less, but there's only 22 days to go.
yeah.
So they might not even get one of them, to be honest. Looking at that. Yeah.
Wait, what? They might not even get any mugs.
They might not even get the second
Yeah.
colour.
Oh, they're in all different ones. Jeez. Okay, well that's fucked.
Wait, hold on.
That
I
is
mean,
that
I
is
guess
going.
I'm not
That
sure
is.
what changed about your understanding of the situation there. I'm not
I
sure.
thought it was just there was you reach a tier and then all the other mugs become viable. But
Oh,
no, you
okay,
have
yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah.
Each of
So,
them are different.
yeah. Second,
No, there
fourth, and
shouldn't have
third.
been a 4-pack. There shouldn't have been a 4-pack
It
if they were
literally shouldn't
like.
be available until the other colours are
Yeah,
unlocked. Yeah, yeah. I don't think I can. I definitely don't approve of this. If that means anything. I
uh,
don't look at this and think good. I can tell you that much. I don't. Um. So that's a little bit awkward. I think you did think about like how much oversight did Ghost Ship have over this thing? How much responsibility? I guess definitely some. Obviously, it's tied to them very strongly. But I haven't really heard anything else about it either. You know, from any source. Maybe it just went away after, because obviously the default community is pretty insular as well. So when Axis Chronos makes a video, right, there's a good chance that most people who pay attention to extraneous deep rock stuff, like random like promotional Kickstarter, for example, have probably seen that video, which means the understanding of how that Kickstarter actually works is probably pretty widespread now in the community, so you can kind of just know how to approach it more so. He also said that a lot of people, with the way that people are about this game, right, about the IP, a lot of people probably would barely care about that. They just want to give as much money as they can to like anything Deep Rock related. He said there are probably quite a few people like that, and I think that's true.
yeah, but that is not an infinite well. If they're willing to spend tons of money and then get scammed, good fucking luck. Right? Good fucking luck. Like them coming back, and you're just burning once again. You're burning your biggest fans, which is a tendency most games seem to make for some reason.
What are you thinking of when you
But
said that? I feel like that was something else.
just everything. It's just a trend, is it not? Like always, the biggest fans of games get screwed over whenever they try and like bring in the new younger people who know less about the games and care less about stuff and everything.
Oh yeah, I
Like
mean
it's
I
just the
suppose
trend.
it's quite broad, but it's like it can also be observed in a lot of stuff. Um, even literally just what you were talking about, like you can easily point to something like Elder Scrolls, a very long term thing though, but it's like it's gradually becoming less and less for the people who like first started playing Elder Scrolls games. You know, like
Yeah, I
like
mean, it happened
Morrowind.
pretty quickly. If you Morrowind, yeah.
Yeah, it really
Um,
happened fairly quickly. Yeah, it does kind of just happen. Which is something I do not feel like happened to Deep Rock. By the way, if anything, I feel like it's kind of the opposite as far as the game itself goes. Um, Especially with what season 5 added. When you think about it, that's when we get like things like Infinite Promotions and Hazard 5 Plus. Like they like everyone who plays the game for sure. Um, it does
yeah,
not feel
but they're
it does
not
not feel
very good.
strongly skewered.
I'm sorry, but they are really only good at making a game. It seems that every time they try and venture outwards, it really doesn't go well for them and their brand. And
Well, I guess also
anything going on.
and the business practices that are insular to the game, that are
Yeah.
within the game.
I mean,
So
actually, their
that's like,
publishing so far seems to be all right. Not that we're sure how they're doing financially, which I'm sure that's what it would affect more than anything.
well,
But
that's also games, right? Video games,
yeah,
not board games or
yeah, but it's still not. It's not making
keychains.
game, but
No.
um,
But I guess that you could argue that's like, oh, they have a better eye for get like game making talent than merch
yeah,
making
but even
talent.
then, that doesn't really matter. Like I'm sure that you like. It probably comes down to finance. Is how you could fuck up that kind of thing, publishing. Like if you go in over your head and you can't afford to publish all these people's games and shit goes down.
Yeah, I think I actually had
It's
we'll
not
talk about
publishing
this.
bad games.
We'll talk about this, I think, at the end of the podcast. But I had a dream about.
Wow, brilliant.
I
I wonder when
realized.
you'll learn.
Learn what?
Learn that you just don't start so many fucking conversations with that.
I don't start many conversations with "I had a dream." Do
Yeah,
I?
you do.
I had a dream
Yeah.
about them putting out like a new roadmap, right? And they somehow had like added like 5 more games to their roster, like the publishing roster. And I was just like, oh no. I'm pretty sure there were some films in there too. It was complete nonsense. But the point was, I think we'll get into it later, but I don't think I'm certainly at the point where I think before now, when it comes to the publishing side, I wasn't like I was pretty neutral to it, I think. But it might start to teeter into a bit of a weird direction if they announce even more like games they're publishing, to be honest, at this point. Um I know it's like not really affecting them, but it does affect Soren first and foremost, and one of the other guys, and obviously Mikkel. And they shouldn't have this like too many under their belt, because it's also what you're even doing then apart from like a little bit of money and a little bit of occasional advice as well. I don't know. And then I wouldn't be thrilled to see, and there's like the only way for me to like really be interested in if they have to announce any more publishing projects if they somehow look like amazing, you know, and I mean like outstanding, or if there's like another Deep Rock spin-off or something like that, I guess, just to be a bit shallower about it. But we can move on from mugs, because I think until something is said about that, it's a relatively contained thing. But it's not a great look either, is it? It's not for anyone. So, I guess we'll either just all have to move on, or there'll have to be some kind of change to the Kickstarter, or some kind of, I don't know. I don't even. It's not out. I think Apology is literally not out of the realm of possibility. I think Apology is like a weird thing that some people take a bit too seriously as well, where it's like this massive deal. I think it's kind of warranted, but shouldn't be like soul crushing for anyone to have to make an apology about something like this either. You know.
Yeah.
We can talk about instead numbers. I mean, this is kind of going to be a very numerical episode anyway, but we have and we have something that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be that insightful, but I think in this case it actually is. We have the stats for 2024, the numbers for everything that happens in Deep Rock, like sales and whatnot. It kind of went by, but I'm gonna point out two things I think are fair to bring up in conversation. First of all, 10 million sales overall achieved in 2024 for Deep Rock.
Oh yeah.
Let's go. Yeah, yeah. I guess I can immediately bring up a smaller other part to that is like that's up from 8 million. So that's 2 million sales in 2024. It should be pointed out. But it reached 10 million, and I think that is something, right? That's definitely a milestone. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a number.
Yeah, it's a big number.
10.
10. It's the highest I can count to, actually.
Yeah, that's as far as my fingers can go, at least.
Oh my god! Not for your entire life. Is that right, or was that just your toes? Do you even want to talk about that?
Oh no, yeah, it was I had 6 fingers, 6 toes on both appendages.
So he could have gone.
When I was a bad boy.
He could have gone to 12 million.
Yeah, I could have. 12 million toes.
Yeah,
It's made someone very excited.
he could have gone to 12 million. Actually, I think I'm gonna have to really to do this properly. I will actually have to find the 2023 stats as well, because there is one relatively striking difference that I think does put into perspective some aspects of the year. Is it the user base one? Was it daily active users? Okay. Oh, I guess it does also clarify in the thing. Okay, yeah.
Thing.
These are the more telling ones. So, daily active users in 2024 is 139,000, which is down from 150,000 last year, or 2023. And another down one is actually average concurrent users, which was 11.7 thousand, down from 19.9 thousand. So the average concurrent users is actually down by quite a bit. And yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. I think this is the first time there's been a downtrend, though, like, or a downturn between years. It's just been like constant and quite like exceptional growth every year until last year. And that almost like feels like a little bit bad. It's like, well, about season 5. Season 5 was great, but it's just like that's not the only factor going to be whether or not people choose to play the game or not. So it was gonna happen, wasn't it? It was gonna, and it should be. What do you mean? What do you mean? What's that?
What was going to bound to happen?
Just players dropping off. It's the first time that the year has had a lower average of concurrent players compared to the previous year. The first time it's gone down. And you would expect it to go down even more, wouldn't you? This year, certainly.
Year, I mean, because at least that year still had season 5, right?
Exactly.
It's just the average doesn't work out. But I mean, even the people that would play Deep Rock Galactic might be playing a different game instead of that this year, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be actively taking from the pool there.
So good numbers overall, except not. I do think this is the first time things have gone down. Well, we do have a what's this? What does it say? Apparently, Order of the Deep DLC was the fastest selling DLC for DRG, with 43,000 people buying it within the first 24 hours. That's a fast selling DLC. Perhaps it will be. I mean, I don't think it will be outperformed, to be honest. No.
Because it was tied with season 5, so people were actually playing the game. But meanwhile, this DLC, there isn't actually any reason to come back to the game.
Yeah, that's something to talk about. We haven't actually talked about the DLC, aside from in
right up at the beginning,
private messages. Because why not save it for now? But I mean, I think certainly our surprise, right? I mean, I think we were expecting nothing for the anniversary, like that was notable in game. For Deep Rock, just because the last two had, like I think
they
season 5
do a DLC.
No.
I mean, other than the sports pack, we don't. So it's only twice.
Yeah, and obviously last year just happened to line up I think they just felt like adding the Mark 6 armors early. I don't think it
Yeah, and
inherently
it's not.
spelled that they would do something every anniversary, and certainly not a DLC, because we'll have to get into the fact that it's a DLC. But we could start with the more artful side of things, I suppose. So obviously for the 7th anniversary, they just completely out of the blue announced a new armor DLC, Skull Crusher set, and what I meant by starting on the artful side of things is actually what we think of it, because obviously it kind of fucking slaps, doesn't it? It's pretty incredible stuff, really. You literally questioned if they had a new art director. To me,
Yeah, I did.
okay. I
It's
mean
just
that's
not
based on the
something that
last
they've
one
ever.
and this one as well, isn't it? Because obviously Order of the Deep is very clearly fantasy infused with sci-fi. It's like fantasy power armor. This is pretty much pure fantasy, really, isn't it? Like it's got
Yeah.
like glowing bits, but honestly, where it's like the animated paint job, I kind of just you could see that as like magic, not like technology. This is pretty much pure fantasy, and it feels good for them. They're like we finally get something that is pure fantasy, and it's this good, as well. It's like
Yeah,
seriously, I wanted to show you specifically the fact that Driller, one of his shoulders has a massive fucking skull on it. Um,
I saw that.
you did see that, yeah.
Because I own eyes.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh,
And then there's just Gunner who is just taking the
it's ridiculous.
piss. He's just aura farming to a degree that is
He's got like
abhorrent.
a chain scale cape or some weird shit like that, and he like.
Yeah, I mean, I
Like,
saw
I think
Driller also has like just big chains as well, just across his back. But yeah, he's got some kind of chainmail cape. But it's just like just from the front, the fucking the silhouette that he casts is ungodly. It is actually diabolical. And yeah, so it is just artistically speaking, it's like an incredible package on every front. You told me to basically just put it in the S tier of our obviously. So yeah, our recent DLC tier list got dated like immediately. That really hasn't happened
Yep.
before, and I'm not unhappy for it to have happened in this case. And so I did do that, and I think we're comfortable doing that because Order of the Deep was already so close, and the difference that between these two and the previous lot of normal DLCs, like normal, is that Order of the Deep and Skullcrusher do both actually have like a slightly higher price point. Where they're normally I think it's $5.99. These are actually $8.99. But we gave Order of the Deep like A tier anyway. And this is so obviously better than Order of the Deep, I think, for us. So
Yeah.
it was a pretty easy to put it in S tier. But that's obviously a dangerous thing because we don't have it yet. But that's why we do need to get onto the little bit more, the little bit of the weirder side of it. And I think I can actually approach this by asking you the question, which I think is actually a fair question in this case. Are you good? Are you going to get this one? I think I have to ask that. Are you going to buy
I
this
thought
DLC?
that I would.
Yeah.
I really did think that I would, but I've realized I'm not. I'm never going to play Deep Rock again.
Oh, fucking hell.
I don't. I haven't felt like playing it even during the single one day, like when we do the new events or like the holiday stuff. I haven't even felt like playing it then. And when Road Core is out, or at least Road Core is playable for us, it's just not a universe where I like play Deep Rock. Like, I don't know. It just feels like I wouldn't say it's wasted money, but if I buy it, it's purely because I want them to be able to afford to make Road Core.
Yeah, obviously I'm going to get it, and obviously a lot of people will. It's worth its money in that kind of word I'm using a lot, the insular sense. If you still play Deep Rock, absolutely go get this thing, and that's why I'm going to get it. I'm going to be happy to have it too. But Tyler is a case study, right, in type of person that exists. Obviously he exists. I think we know that, but there's definitely more than one. There's definitely There's definitely more than one Tyler. And even if there isn't, well, obviously there is, but even if they're not all Tylers, there are people in between me and him who probably can't justify buying it, even if they do play Deep Rock every now and then. They probably still don't play it quite
Yeah.
enough to really justify it. So, I mean, that brings up the question of like, they kind of randomly do this very clearly very impassioned DLC. Clearly, a lot of effort went into it to make a new anniversary DLC. Not like it's not an anniversary DLC in terms of like presentation, but it's clearly been made for the anniversary to come out alongside it. But obviously, you take the fact that it's been when it comes out, it's been like 8 months since Deep Rock's last update. It's going to be at least a year until the next one major update. Is there a level of audacity, to put out paid content for Deep Rock at this time? Do you know what I mean? I think that's a fair question to ask, really, because I think there is some. There is some. I think there is some audacity to it. It's a tad audacious.
You could look at it as like, them basically being like, happy anniversary, thanks for still being around. But then that message kind of changes quite a bit when it's like money that you're spending to get that. It's quite odd.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's like, and it's a weird thing to bring up now because obviously this is what Roadcore would have been. But when it's been a really long time without updates, I don't think a kind of DLC that was actually, it's a very strange sort of version of reality we don't live in. But if it's been a very long time without updates, I think the next thing to happen being a paid DLC that is actually gameplay content would actually be more reasonable, almost. Because it's like, oh, so this is what you've been working on for Deep Rock. Obviously, that's not current dynamic of things. It makes sense that this is what they would be able to make for Deep Rock at the moment, right? They're not in the position to be able to make gameplay content. But they're still doing this. It's why you can almost bring up things like, oh, maybe it would have been reasonable to pair it with maybe an accompanying framework in game. Because obviously we've had something like this before with Scale Brigade, right? That was added on an anniversary, but it was like wholesale. It was Scale Brigade, armor, and framework being added at the same time in game for free, and that was actually pretty exceptional. I think the Scale Brigade armor, obviously, technically you couldn't make Scale Brigade a DLC armor because it's like built off of the Mark IIIs, so I think they really couldn't get away with that. But I think the cool thing about that and how that could have actually really worked to their benefit here is if you added a framework at the same time that's in the game like normally, that's like that is some incentive to play because you have to like go and find the frameworks, right, from the cargo crates. It's something, and it would be nice to pair it because obviously also something that people do whenever something gets added is like try and like dissect it as to like what other things it is. It's like this is like Order of the Deep mixed with Robot Rebellion mixed with Order of the Deep. Right, I said Order of the Deep twice. Dawn of the Dread. Right, it's like and I don't think it's any of those things. I think it will map to certain frameworks quite well. It will map to things like Waster and like Fourth Relic, I guess, probably quite well. But I think this is, to go back to sort of giving this a bit more artistic merit here. I think it's entirely unique, to be honest, from other stuff in the game.
Oh yeah, within the game.
Yeah, there are things that it looks a little bit similar to. I think Order of the Deep and Robot Rebellion, you can see it as something of a hybrid of the two, but I definitely don't. This is definitely stepping out of the realm of what they normally do, which is why they're that, like someone from your position, there's a little bit of a bittersweet aspect to it. It's like, this looks fantastic and is worth the money in its own right, but I also can't justify buying it at the same time, even though it's like worth it, but I can't justify it. And that's a little bit bitter, I think, and a little bit strange. And there are some other small things I want to touch on as far as surprising stuff about Deep Rock that's kind of happening, but it's nothing with the kind of weight that you want to bring people back to the game with. And obviously, we know now certainly events don't do that. Certainly from your perspective. I don't know why I started going into a weird accent there. Certainly from your perspective.
Your perspective.
but it's still weird. There is something else about the DLC that I didn't know about until like the other day. That someone brought up on Reddit. Apparently, when you, I need to, I kind of need to find it. I think it should be on the page actually. I think I probably can clarify this pretty quickly. So you have to give me just a small moment. Because this is something that is either one way or another. I'm going to find you. Okay. So it is. You do need the armor equipped. This is actually really cool. If you have the armor equipped, you can get Skull Crusher Ale for free. Which is a daily special. By the way, that's one of the daily special beers. So obviously it has to be on tap. But
wait, what?
That kind of went
if
over
you
your
have
head,
the armor, yeah, you can get a free drink.
Well, the Skull Crusher Ale is one of the daily specials. So that's like a bath beer. You pay barley bowl for it normally. So and it still has to be on tap. You can't just get it no matter what. But if you have the armor equipped, you can get it for free.
So weirdly nuanced.
It is.
Like how
do you know,
specific.
So and then someone brought up, it's like Skull Crusher is the first DLC to technically not be purely cosmetic. so yeah, I guess so.
As gameplay value.
Apparently, there was actually some discussion. It's like there was some people like, no, they're going pay to win. Yeah, okay. All right, sure. I wouldn't even be mad.
Pay to win is not even a thing in non-PvP games, right? Like,
not really.
If it's pay to win, but it's against AI, what does it fucking matter? Like, it doesn't really.
Yeah, but obviously you would really cheapen the game experience if you could just have people pay to be like infinitely strong.
Sure,
it makes it infinitely worse. But the thing is, I wouldn't even have a problem if it basically put Skull Crusher on tap for free all the time while you're wearing it. I think that would actually be kind of fun. It's just like if you're wearing Skull Crusher armor, you get Skull Crusher Ale whenever you want. You know, I think it makes sense.
Buy it at least.
Yeah,
that could be the cool thing for all the DLCs. You then just get a permanent like drink.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, what would they? I can't really map any of them onto them off the top of my head though. Dark Future, Dark Morkite.
Oh, that'd be rough.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know. It's good. It's a really, really good DLC. I hope they add something like that in Roll. So I'll actually feel like
there you go.
I'm getting it.
There you go. Look at that. It brought up. But I don't think.
With that being said, I think we have talked about it a little bit. Is it does paint a good picture. Like, you know, I think the reception to these things have proved that whoever's fault it was, why we haven't been getting stuff like this before, was incorrect and should be ignored. That fantasy inspired outfits are the fucking goat, and will get people out of their seats.
I think it's it's like a little bit of affirmation as well, or sort of confirmation. I don't know what you would call it when it's like the first time that it's happened, because it's almost like it's kind of being shot down. Fantasy cosmetics feels like something that has been shot down by Ghost Ship for like this whole time, and yet they finally come out with one, and it's like damn near the best thing in the game, like cosmetic wise. It's like, why weren't we doing this the entire time? Why weren't, you know,
adoration from the entire community.
Yeah, like exactly. But I mean, speaking of that being like a good sign, I guess if anyone needs any sort of reminding, a very strong aspect that I think is fair to continue to be excited about and was proved last time we saw roll call footage is the strength of the just general artistic direction of everything. So far, like this seems to be something that, despite how little has really happened with Deep Prog over the last few months, there are still things that have happened that show this as something that they seem to be getting better at. Is the art style and the design of things. There's been enough things that's something that we can actually track their progress of. It's like it feels like it's getting stronger, and everything that we know about like the tone and aesthetic of roguecore is probably going to only sell that even more. And it makes me scornful of all the silly ass cosmetics that we've been getting for the last however long. You know, it's like
Yeah.
It's not that it hurts, but it is slightly vindicating to be reminded how good they can be when they just lock in. That's what that's what season 5 is, for example, as like a content update. It's that kind of thing. That's what this is as a DLC. That's what Roadcore seems to be as like a fucking tour de force in like enemy design. You know, it's like it's both vindicating. It's like there's a little bit of like melancholy to it, but it's because of like what things that could have been and whatnot. But it's still very reassuring when it comes to like the future. Just like to be reminded how fucking goated the stuff they make can be, both like gameplay wise and aesthetically. Because I think that the holiday cosmetics really undersell what they're capable of, like badly, like really badly. You know.
I think I don't know, which is why I wish they like did like a DLC holiday like pack. Wait, did they? Or am I?
What do you mean?
No, they haven't, have they? No, they haven't. I don't know. For some reason in my head, like the elf stuff was like paid.
God,
but
can you
no,
imagine?
That's just made up.
I can't because I think they know their
well,
worth
that's
better
what
than
I'm
that.
saying. Is that like the only way for them to realize how shitty that stuff is to make people try and get people to pay for it and watch as like the crowd says fuck no.
Yeah, and the one time something like that almost happened, they improved it. I guess if we're talking about obviously how much so you have to weigh up, but when there was a DLC that people had criticisms of,
the outfits people wouldn't mind too much, but it's just the hats. Like if I had to pay for like the fucking shitty ass hats, I'd be pissed.
yeah. I mean, well, why would you though? What timeline is that? What time?
I don't know.
Why would we have ever had to pay for those? I don't know. But yeah, I think something that crops up a little bit, certainly whenever a new DLC is added completely out of nowhere, and I'm sorry to bring this up, Tyler, but it does bring loadout slots to mind.
Yep.
And I did a poll on this on Reddit, and that's why I think I can substantiate this topic a little bit more. I didn't actually mention the DLC. It's like, now we've got another DLC on the way. Surely we need more loadout slots, right? But I literally, all I did was like, we need more loadout slots at this point, right? Yes and no were the options. The results are on our side, but still a bit frustrating, because out of 131 votes, 81 said yes, 50 said no. That's
why
are this like that's the thing. Why are you?
There's
no reason. There's no reason to say no. It doesn't make sense.
Did anyone follow it up? Like,
let's have a look. Well, one of the first comments was like, "What are people even doing with 6 slots? Genuine question. Driller has 3 loadouts for me because of his main guns, but I can't see any use outside of maybe 4 loadouts a class. 1 for each primary gun, then 1 for boss shredding." And it's like, so that's where it comes from. A very, and I'm hesitant to say wrong, but a very different and incomplete view of what you need loadout slots for. I think incomplete is a good word. I mean,
Tom is, he only had like 2 per.
Yeah, and honestly, Tom's the kind of guy who would say no just to be a dick. But he also wouldn't. I don't think he wouldn't take a stance against it either. But do you think an incomplete view is a good word? It's like, this is someone who is considering it from a very limited perspective, right? It's like, well, why would I need more?
Even then, it's like
even it doesn't justify saying no. It's like I don't mind them saying that, but I would mind if I found that person voted no, because it's like you have no reason to oppose it still, no matter what you feel about loadout slots. Even then, that's very limited. Like, I think we were both very badly disagree with that stance, because like there's like a minimum of 6, right? 6 is the bare minimum because that's like the average of overclocks. Obviously, it's kind of gone up from that pretty much, especially for primary weapons. But it's like I need more than 6. I need more than 6 for the weapons, you know. And then you've considered cosmetics. It's just like it just make it infinite. And you've talked about this has had some impact on your motivation to play. Maybe that's irrecoverable now through loadout slots. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that loadout slots will completely change your tune, but they have played a role, haven't they? And when you just add a new DLC randomly, at least give me a slot for the DLC. You know what I mean, though? Like, you give me a slot for that or something.
Yeah.
At the bare minimum.
Like, I can't make any new dwarves. I can't fucking I don't know, play the game. I will experiment and put bits on other classes, but I want a Skull Crusher slot for sure. I want that. I want that for all of you. I think this is a bit weird. Armor DLCs could justifiably add loadout slots if that's how they wanted to play it. I don't like that. They should just add an infinite number anyway. But if you need something to go on, I think people should be fully freed, given the freedom to have a slot dedicated to their DLC. And the fact is, let's take a quick look at DLCs. I need to make sure I got the numbers right here. Actually, I can probably do it in my head. Dark Future, Roughneck, Dawn of the Dread, Biohazard, Order of the Deep, Skull Crusher. Okay, so there's 6. There's 6 Armor DLCs. That's the number of loadout slots. So there definitely should be more than 6. There should definitely be more than 6 loadout slots if you can fill them all with DLC armors, because that just limits you so much. So much. And this is something that I will find frustrating. I know I'm going to replace a bunch. Some guys are going to get replaced by this, obviously. This is going to get forced in, but I don't like when I have to force it in. I don't appreciate that. I'm still going to benefit from this though, because it's going to make for fucking a wonderful DLC showcase, because I have everything. It's the first DLC to be added that I have every cosmetic available in Deep Rock. So I can really show it off in its fullest form. Even though the only limitation on that really is frameworks, though, to be honest. Make sure I have all the frameworks. Which I just realised I'm only 98% sure I have all of the Season 5 frameworks. But that'll be fine. That'll be fine. Anyway, speaking of other cosmetic surprises, I'm sure this won't last as long as a topic, but I definitely want to bring it up. They added another maintenance paint job out of nowhere. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that, apart from I like that. That's clearly something that's not a lot of effort and a fair amount of reward, right, for the players. In terms of adding playtime. An incentive. It's weapon maintenance 5.4 in this case, because we got 3 for Season 5, and it's just continuing that. And it's called Arkham. I haven't seen anyone apply it, but it looks pretty interesting. It's dark, purple and black and something else. So that would entail its own showcase eventually, but it's just what is this? What's going on? What's this weird attention that's being given to Deep Rock? But it's also sort of in the realm of either things that are very easy to do or just cosmetics, which is why I don't think it means anything bigger. But it's why are they doing these weird little things? And one of them isn't little, one of them is a DLC, but it's still around the same time. It's just kind of out of the blue and nice, because these are clearly things that either don't take up much effort or are reasonable for the allocation of effort. We talk about DLC, that's something they can clearly afford to do. Or something like a maintenance paint job. And I don't think I need to spin this in the way of this is going to get Tyler to play, right? But you can also agree how a maintenance paint job is not too hard to make and does have good rewards for people playing the game. Someone who has gotten literally everything and will
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, it's just a difficult person. Like, you don't need to make stuff for that kind of guy, right? That's the problem.
You kind of do
But I
for
guess
me
it's nice that
though.
they are.
You kind of do for me because I have realized I am kind of only playing for the to make the videos. um
Mm.
but I think because of the way that I am, right, I would have that would have happened anyway. That's the way I see it. I would have made I make the videos so that I can keep playing the game that I want to have a reason to keep playing. I'm good at this kind of thing. I'm good at creating incentives for myself. Um, but I do like having the extra stuff. So because of my reason to play is pretty one note, it's just to practice for these overclock showcases. Um, Adding something like a new weapon maintenance could do a bit more. It could bring me up a little bit, and I do still question like this like how they came to like decide to add one. It's like it's see that's the kind of thing where I do wonder about implications. Is it like does that mean they plan on adding a couple at a set time? Because it's like I know they're not like that, but it seems so small that why would it be this random? If you know what I mean. It doesn't. It just doesn't
Yeah.
feel. It doesn't feel that spontaneous. If you know what I mean. Because it's so small. But like it's like small but very deliberate because it's making a new. It's not like the thing that happened with the patch, and I want to get into this and like I guess now. Did you catch like what the implications of the thumbnail and the title of the most recent patch breakdown?
I read it. The egg hunt had only been using 10% of the
So you got
available.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I went so in the video I sort of talked about like what is that really? Is that like a bug that was born? Because it doesn't clarify like when, if you know what I mean. Because obviously we got new cave shapes in like season 5 and season 3. Is this a bug that was introduced with those, or has this actually been for the entire time? Yeah, like and how ridiculous that is. Um,
Yeah.
like that doesn't. It almost doesn't track as like possible, especially because right we hold egg hunt in pretty high regard as well. It's like what kind of if it is the case that egg hunt has genuinely been this way since the beginning of the game, what magic did they pour into it for us to like it that much? You know,
Mm.
like that's kind of wild. It's like it's only been using 10% of his available cave shapes. Um, and yeah, I think we gave it S tier.
An S tier, like every
think
time we do
so.
it.
Yeah, every time. Or 5 times. No, I think we've done it twice actually, to be fair. But yeah. So that's weird, but that's also the kind of thing where that feels more appropriate to be random, is what I'm saying. It's like that's something they can just know. It's still insane that it got by this long, but it's just something they can notice and patch out, right? But adding a weapon maintenance paint job is, even if it's very small, it's still far more deliberate than that. So I don't think I'm like insane for wondering if there are implications there for some kind of consistent like addition of those paint jobs. Right? I'm not crazy, am I? I'm not crazy. Please tell me I'm not crazy.
I mean, you're a little crazy, like always.
But you can see why it's less random though. It feels less random.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Still, that's actually two. That's two videos right there, by the way. That maintenance paint job and DLC for showcases, and obviously getting the armor tier list dated so quickly was kind of entertaining. And no, it does not mean there'll be another one. That's the kind of tier list that we definitely will not do again, right? That's ridiculous.
Not really enough to warrant that.
Yeah, I guess Rocore could have its own, but we'll see about that. But what I do still want to do, and this has only been more substantiated, and it's probably it. having this happen makes this the best time to do it. Not super soon. We'll give it some time, but I definitely want to do an armor set tier list. I think that's very fair now, and that allows us to factor that in more elaborately as well, I suppose. Like on an individual level. Obviously, we wouldn't spend loads of time on each one, especially because you wouldn't even have the DLC. But still, it works for that. I guess I'll have to do the maintenance paint job tier list by myself. That's not happening, by the way.
Yeah.
That's not a thing. I could do a paint job tier list though. I have thought about it. As in, I feel like you wouldn't want to do that, right? Because it's too granular, and you would have to literally look at every single one individually as we go along. I know your memory and your interest does not serve you to. So I could do that. As far as, because I still haven't done a like wholesale tier list by myself that's like deep rock, aside from when we did the Overclock ones, if you remember, which was a great time. But the other ones I've done were like more specific, and they were not deep rock ones. But I could do a paint job tier list, and rile some people up, because I would put that stupid fucking Nerf paint job in F tier. Dumbasses.
Monkey would hate that.
Monkey.
He likes nerfs.
He likes nerfs. Well, in Deep Rock we don't do nerfs. We only buff.
You do nerfs sometimes.
Yeah, but it's usually buffs. Usually. Okay. Let's talk about money. Or rather, I think the topic for the podcast, but I think I want this to be led by the question thread, because I think we've already had lots of like topics to get through, so I think I don't want to just like very obtusely thrust upon us a random topic. Rather, I'll get the input from the audience and it'll go from there, because how we do this now is there's always a question thread for the podcast, just so we can sort of bring in people's write-ins if they make sense, rather than doing like comment focused episodes, which were terrible, basically. So the natural evolution of that is to always have comments instead. And so my mouth is so dry, man. I can't see. Oh, there we go. I should be able to see. It doesn't let me look at, if I go through like the back end way of looking at this stuff, it doesn't let me view the post itself and the comments in the same screen. Very stupid. Very demure. Anyway, so this is kind of just about like the concept of DLCs and like price points and things. I always put forward two questions, so we're actually going to start with like the first question, because people very graciously actually do number their responses as well as like the questions are numbered. So we'll actually do it by the questions. So question number 1 is: do you want Rocore to have DLCs in the same vein as DLG? Why or why not? And so, like I said, we will gain the discussion immediately by getting people's answers. So we'll start with Certified Robutler, who in response to this question says, yeah, sure, the DLCs Ghost Ship gave us have awesome value for what you pay, especially on sale. It's also a way to keep the company afloat in a non-intrusive way, so I'm all for it. A very like very kind but sensible take. Very excited by the idea of just having more ways to give Ghost Ship money, but that's kind of like the that's like a more than acceptable position. It's just like the way DRG has done DLCs is good, so Rocore doing it the same way would also be good. Basically, that's what that is, and I can't say that doesn't make sense, because it does make sense. Like, yeah, you go from one to the other. You don't need to change anything. It is predicated on how customization is handled in Rocore, though, of course. and what kind of value can be gained from DLCs. But I guess when it comes to that quite lofty subject, it really comes down to, if I want to like do this in a short way, Roguecore's customization should have everything that Deep Rock has and more thought put into it, like more stuff that could be done with sort of the flexibility of customization. So there should be no reason why Roguecore shouldn't be able to offer the same value of DLCs, if not better value, depending on how the customization works. Right? That makes sense. It's got blindsided by a sports headline in the bottom left of my screen. Sports headline: Ruud van Nistelrooy, and then it cuts off. It's like, okay, I don't know what that means. So following from the same carrying on with the same first question, from Titanium Arrow 8357. I think DLC in the same sense as DLG would be epic, especially because they are only cosmetic. Yeah, and I don't think there's So obviously we know. I'm sure everyone knows that Roguecore. I hope everyone knows Roguecore was originally meant to be a paid expansion for Deep Rock. Do we think the fact that it got changed into its own game means that neither game will? This is not something that will happen to either game ever. Is a paid deal, like content expansion. Do you know what I mean?
Probably.
Yeah.
It's
makes
not like they
like...
were against the idea of that. Clearly.
Exactly, they're
it's
not
just
against
that
the
they
idea.
realized it was just a worse experience if they did it that way. So why do that?
Yeah, it's like they're clearly not against it, but it's like they're so enigmatic and hard to predict that it could just happen if an idea comes along that they are tantalized by, but it does fit better into one of the games rather than its own. And they'll also have options too. They'll have more than one game to potentially add paid content DLC for, because I think I'm not saying this really goes for many people, definitely some, so it's a little bit of a straw man though. But I think when you have something like a game like Deep Rock that puts such like user-friendly business practices on display, from a DLC perspective as well, especially, I think it has given some people the impression that gameplay DLC is like a bad move somehow, if you know what I mean, where it really doesn't have to be. That you can run into problems with paid content, especially in like a PvP game, where it's like microtransactions that give you an edge. That's a big no-no, obviously, but there are a lot of
Microsoft
amazing.
You said Microsoft and Edge.
Did I?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't
Give
even use...
Microsoft and Edge. No?
When? What?
I might be going crazy then.
I think I used the term microtransactions.
Or that might have been what I paid
Yeah,
attention
I
to.
think it was I think that was it. Microtransactions. But the point is, there are a lot of amazing gameplay expansions, like game DLCs, DLC games, even, like Blood and Wine, or what was the Elden Ring one? I can't remember what it's called.
That Tree.
Oh, Shadow of the Erdtree. Yeah. Which, of course, Shadow of Erdtree can be nominated for Game of the Year, but not Blood and Wine, not Phantom Liberty. No.
What even is any of those things?
Blood and Wine is Witcher 3. It's a Witcher 3 one. It's like a massive, like a very well regarded expansion. Phantom Liberty Cyberpunk. It's a Cyberpunk one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's others like Dragon Keep for Borderlands 2, which obviously that's an expansion that also became its own game. through the idea. Unfortunately, for me at least, the game that was made from it is the worst version of the two. Um, the worst iteration. There is also the version. This is weird. There is actually a game that exists that is just the Dragon Keep DLC by itself, which is really stupid. And oh, let's take those two. And I'm going to say something really weird here. Even though I don't like Wonderlands, obviously, the expectation is that Roycore is going to lean more towards Wonderland than the isolated Dragon Keep game. You know, if that even needs to be said, it doesn't need to be said. By the way, and I don't want Roycore to be like I don't want Roycore to be like Wonderlands. I'm just saying, in terms of I guess the differences. Point is, expansions aren't a bad thing, and I don't want anyone to be caught in the trap of thinking that I don't want Ghost Ship to be caught in the trap of thinking that the only DLC they can do is cosmetic. Either, if they have a strong enough idea that they think makes more sense for that should be a deal in terms of like the work involved and like I guess differences to the base game, that should be an expansion, and they feel better for it to be an expansion than a game, then it should be an expansion. It's entirely possible they run into a situation that is seemingly reminiscent of Roadcore, but they find that they would actually rather keep it as a DLC. And I would say to them, you absolutely can. People should understand that gameplay DLC has just as much merit as cosmetic DLC, and just as much merit as making new games. It's this weird middle ground between working very well as like DLC, even in comparison to cosmetics, but also being like, this can have merit as like a separate gameplay experience from the game as well. It just takes less time because you're not building a new foundation. Some things can be suited to that, and obviously I think there's the hope that it is very clear, right? It's very clear that Roadcore wasn't suited to that. I think it's a very generalized hope, is that it's like, yes, this very clearly should have been its own game. I think we already feel that way, but not everyone does. So yeah.
All right, good. I'm glad we wrinkled that out.
Glad we ironed out that wrinkle. Yeah. My mouth is so fucking dry. Yep, obviously we're still on the question one. From I Suck at Everything 9676. Why not? Depending on if and how Roadcore handles its cosmetic stuff, then I dictate the choice on buying them on that, and also how cool they are. Yeah, so this is someone who's actually putting forward the fact that it would be somewhat based on how Roadcore handles its cosmetics as well. Survivor, technically, this is weird. Deep Rock Survivor is a game that doesn't have customization, but it does have a supporter upgrade DLC that is purely cosmetic. And you switch it on in the settings for a toggle, and it just makes all the dwarves gold. I think the hope is that Roadcore will be better than that. Even if it doesn't launch with its like customization systems fully fleshed out, I don't think anyone wants it to be like that. Probably want it to be proper. And like I said earlier, Roadcore customization should be basically more thought. It should be like a copy and paste of Deep Rock's, but also at the same time, it would seem like a copy and paste, but it would have been built from the ground up to allow for more options, hopefully. I think we certainly want more foresight in the how cosmetic systems are sort of constructed from the start of the game, rather than Deep Rock's case where they had to, or they have found the need to often patch in or change aspects along the way, but never fully like open up like certain doors for like what customization could be, like how we get sleeveless armor, right? But they don't make tattoos a cosmetic slot. um, yeah, that kind of thing. Basically, tattoos should be their own thing, including face tattoos. In Roadcore, I'm sure we'd all love dwarven face tattoos, or godlike features. or god. Mm.
What's that even mean? Oh, right, from
You keep.
Avowed.
I
Yeah.
tried to reference something like that yesterday, and you didn't get it. That's because I feel like the godlike stuff kind of. I keep forgetting about it, to be honest. Because
Yeah, I mean,
I can't
it's
see
important, but if you're playing first person, yeah, you barely see it.
well, there's also the godlike skill tree.
Yeah, which is pretty cool actually. I've already had 2 things in it.
I got him
so far.
talking. I got him. Piece of shit.
Well, yeah, shock horror. Me talking about a game I can play and enjoy playing versus not that and not that. The shock, the horror.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Cheese never bought any of DLG's DLCs, so he probably won't buy Roadcore ones. But he doesn't think they're a bad idea. Those who want them can pay for them, and those who don't want them don't have to. What a respectable position. What a lovely man. What a lovely young man.
Moving on.
Kitaclysm says, I wouldn't be against Roadcore having the same kind of DLCs. They're just kind of a way to tip the devs, and I'm happy with them. Yeah. Well, the thing about that is, I understand that position, but I don't think it's a good way to. I don't know. I don't think that should really apply to all of them, if you know what I mean. It can apply to the supporter ones, where it's like, this is a donation thing, but I don't know. I don't like the idea of purely seeing them as that, like purely seeing them as ways to donate money, right? Because they're not meant to be. They are meant to be making something of value that you want to buy. So and Roadcore's ones should match that as well, which means that if they don't think they can like do that, then there shouldn't necessarily be like a supporter pack like on launch, for example, if they don't think their like systems are like refined enough to add cosmetics in the way that they want. I don't know what like another version of like a supporter like donation pack would be, but do you think it's unreasonable? Because obviously a lot of people have this position. Do you think they should be allowed to do something like, I don't even know what it would be. Like, I guess it would technically be a DLC, but it's just like it's literally just a donation thing. I guess you could have a Patreon for the devs. People clearly just want to give them money, so
I think there's something that could be really funny, and I wonder if any game's ever done that before. If there's like a tipping box in the, I was about to say rig, but what's it, ramrod,
yep.
Where like you tip it and it just like it's like it's in like if you were buying something, like the buying menu comes up and it's like £1.
So it's literally an in-game like tipping thing, but it's like giving them room. So it would have some kind of effect. Maybe you would go into like the ramrod would go into like party mode for a bit.
Maybe or something.
Like on the jingle jams when they get like hit a milestone, it goes into disco mode. You fucker. Don't deflate my comparisons like that.
It doesn't. It's not difficult. You need a comparison to picture confetti and balloons appearing.
Tyler, I don't know how to picture anything without a comparison.
Really, and it's always yours, cast.
It's much like how Matt Murdock sees everything as a world on fire. No, I can't.
Yeah, don't talk about Daredevil. You don't want to catch that heat.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
You will get the smoke, Tyler. You will get blasted if you put your opinions out there. They won't be happy. Okay, let's talk about something better. In fact, I don't think I'm necessarily going to ignore the replies to this question, but so the second question I put out was: would it be concerning to you if Rogue Core launched at lower price than DRG did, which is $24.99? Tyler, now I'm
Um,
asking you basically. Um,
it
and
wouldn't be
that we can be
concerning.
elaborate.
I
I'm
think
not. This is not my way of saying it would
I
be
would say if it was
concerning.
at half price, it definitely sounds like it's not going to be a game that they continue to invest in the future. It's more of just a one and done thing. Um, that would give me that impression. But if it's like slightly less, then I don't know. They just think it's less of a game, which I guess yeah, it's just any less price is just an indication that they're not going to invest in it as much as Deep Rock.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like the question of
which doesn't mean they won't pay
does
much
a
attention to
lower
it.
price
But
point mean less investment on the game on their part? And I think it definitely does. I don't think there's any reason why Rogue Core shouldn't be able to be priced at the same price point, to be honest. And we do know they do very much so intend to um, keep updating Rogue Core for as long as it makes sense, I think is the stance that I heard. Um, yeah, I don't think there's any reason, especially because DLG's price, I'm pretty sure it's never changed either. So that's from early access to launch, where it's only become more befitting of that price, right? And by all of our metrics and understanding of how it should go, Rogue Core should be not necessarily not have more stuff in it, but still feel more realized than Deep Rock on launch. By which I mean, I think we are expecting Rogue Core's for I think we are expecting Rogue Core's launch state to be better than Deep Rock's, right? Which would mean you
yeah,
would hope for at least the same price. And I do think this is a real thing. I do think a lower price point indicates less confidence or less investment. So I want it to be the same because I want it to provide just as much
hell, mate, I
value.
think more would be reasonable.
I think more would be
But Deep Rock
fine.
is underselling with its price right now, right?
It technically is. Obviously, it depends on how you view why you're getting into the game. If you want like a very like strong live service product, then no. But if you look sheer hours and content wise, yeah, it should be. I mean, it's worth it. I'm not saying it should be. I'm not saying like I think it should be the same price as certain like AAA games, but I do think it's more valuable than certain AAA games. In fact, I think we're in a weird state where most AAA games definitely don't feel like they justify their price point, even though a lot of them do. Um, Certainly not games like Call of Duty, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
Call of Duty Ultimate Edition, wherever it's adding, is like £100. I think proportionally, Deep Rock is a lot more valuable than that. Um, So I think a higher price point could even work. Like I wouldn't be like it wouldn't it wouldn't come close to stopping me or you, would it? Like Rogue Core being what's the upper limit? You know, is that a fair question? Um,
Like 30 quid
well,
or like
is
40
that a
maybe.
limit or just like what you'd expect if it was higher?
Yeah. Like it's just like reasonable in a modern market price. Considering games are going for like 70 to 80 quid nowadays,
Yeah, I think Rogue Core
just
can
a
push up
standard.
to. I think Rogue Core can push up to AA price, and I would still probably get it, which would be about 40. Well, if it was higher, I'd be like, okay, what are you saying here? Um, but if it's a 40 or less, that's not going to come close to stopping me from getting it. At the same time, I think with how early access games are, you probably wouldn't put any even no matter how good it is, you wouldn't put an early access game out at 40 quid. I think. Um, so but that means like a price hike is reasonable. I mean, look, Survivor had a price hike, even though Deep Rock never did. So we'll see. But I
What do
do
you mean?
think,
It's gone up in price.
Yes, Survivor did, yeah. But then again, Survivor started out cheaper than started out much cheaper and still is cheaper than Deep Rock. It's about half the price still, so it's not like it's going nuts. But I think we can get some responses on this side of things. So from Certified Row Butler saying that price doesn't mean quality all the time. Just look at any AAA game today as an example. In my mind, not any. By the way, I want to say, Row Butler, not any AAA game. I'm being pedantic here, but I want. There are AAA games that justify their price, aren't there? There are some. Even a game like I suppose a game like Avowed is like that's worth money, isn't it?
Really?
Yeah, no, it's like crazy.
I don't know if I would have bought it if it was like standard price.
Because it's so hard to know because you're not going to be
just
like
too much.
Yeah.
Like seriously, £80. That's for a normal person minimum wage. That's a day's work. And bear in mind that person's probably going to buy food, like house, electric bills, stuff like that. It's like really you're going to justify on that.
Video games used to be luxuries, right? Where it's like, anyone who works even like the lowest paying job, really, as long as they're not literally impoverished. I mean, certain people, honestly, in America, if you're only working one minimum wage job, that's not a good situation to be in, right? But most people can save some money, and by what I mean by video games being a luxury is that's how it would be done. You would just save a bit of money on the side to get the game that you want, and for a lot of people that was fine. And I think it was especially fine because I think games were much more, on average, were better. I don't think someone who, unfortunately, I thought this actually maps to the kind of people who are buying these games, but I don't think someone who has to save a bit of money from every paycheck so they can afford a new game after a few weeks. I don't think Call of Duty or FIFA deserves that money that they saved, But some games like Baldur's Gate 3 does. And that's a game where it's like, even if 60 to 80 quid seems like
50 quid.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's not even exact. Yeah, and that's crazy. It's like, this is a very, very valuable experience contained in this thing. It's like, even if you don't feel like paying this much, this is worth more than most games out at the moment. Far more, probably. This is worth like 100 quid, really, when you think about it. It's like in what it can give you. So while I understand when you say like price isn't a measure of quality, the opposite is also should be said, where it's like, just because a game is cheap doesn't mean it's worth it.
Yeah. I got a game that was like £2, and it was just like the most shittiest looking RPG thing ever. It's like you just go in a dungeon, you kill some stuff, and you level up. And I'm like, how bad could this be? And it wasn't even worth £2. It was horrendous.
Yeah, because if it's not, no matter how cheap something is, even if it's free, if it's not worth your time, then it wasn't worth it. And I think Rocal will be worth our time. Yes. That's what I'm saying. So back to Titanium Marrow. £25 is about 49 Australian dollars, which is roughly the price of the DRG from memory. I mean, to be fair, mate, that is what I was saying. If I didn't know Ghost Ship's history, I would be worried about spending that much on a roguelike game, but I think that's a pretty fair price. Okay, I do remember reading this one. They were saying that like that seems high for a roguelike, right? And that's actually an interesting concept I didn't think about, is that genre having its own price range,
They are lower. I mean, but they're not. We Binding of Isaac, right? Base game, that's like 20 quid. You end up paying like 80 to 100 on all the DLC.
Yeah, I think Hades is around 20 quid, and that's insane, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
So it is a lower price range genre, that is true.
But that's because some of them are very indie. I think, and obviously Hades still technically is, but I think we're probably expecting Rocal to more be in the Hades category than the other kinds of roguelikes category. Like
Yeah.
in terms of like depth and like scope and content and these kind of things, it's somewhere in between like RoboQuest and Hades. Is kind of how I see Rogue Core, almost. It's like this is teetering on being like AA. It's got like an IP or like an established developer behind it, kind of like Supergiant did with Hades. But it's still an indie roguelike at the same time, and that's why I think DLG's price point is apt for that in itself. I think, and you know, I guess slightly less. I mean, like 20 quid. That's why I would say when we think about the fact that roguelikes do kind of operate in a slightly lower price range than other games. I think I wouldn't be concerned by like 20 quid. I wouldn't be like that shows a lack of faith. You know, I wouldn't say that for 20 quid. If we start dipping, but if we start going below 15 though, then I would. But if we're sitting anywhere in between
like,
15 and 30 quid, I think that's reasonable.
If Rogue Core is the same price as Deep Rock, I think that carries like an implication that they should and want to, or like they would feel to add just as much and give it just as much attention, right? Like, if it's the same price, it's the same game, right? That kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like price can be very important in this case, like as to the future of the game, depending on what the price mark is. Hopefully, it's I would say just the same. Like I don't know.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna move on actually to Mr. Cheese's one. Sorry, I suck at everything. I can see how it may be discouraging to see Rogue Core as valued less than DRG, but price. Okay, here we go. Quite similar to earlier actually. Price, in my experience, rarely dictates how much I enjoy a game. A lot of cheap games are really good. A lot of expensive games are really not good, and we've already established that could be the other way around though as well. That said, I doubt Ghost Ship Games will price Rogue Core any lower than DRG. Even though Rogue Core started off as a paid DRG DLC adjacent thing, it's going to be a lot more than that. And I believe that will be reflected in price. I like that take actually. It's like this started off as a DLC, and that means it would have been, I think, anywhere between, like I guess DRG's current DLC price up to like anywhere between that and DRG's like own price, you know, I guess, but lower than DRG's own price. But yeah, I think considering it from the fact that it was going to be a DLC, it's like, well, if it's a DLC that is going to become its own game now, it should not be DLC priced, should it? It should be own game priced as its own thing.
Yeah.
I like that. I that feels like a kind of, that feels like a nice way to, that feels like a fair way to look at expecting it to be the same price as DRG. It's like a fair thing to bring up. Like it should be pretty much in the same ballpark. And from Criticalism, I think it would be cool if Rogue Core was cheaper than DRG, but I'm not expecting it personally. I'd gladly buy it at the same price. I don't know if it would be cool for it to be cheaper. It would be helpful, right? Because it means it's less money. But I don't want to ever be giving Ghost Ship less money than I think they deserve. Which is why I'll certainly be on the lookout for I guess deluxe editions. I guess I don't know what kind of editions they would launch with in early access, if any, but I'll keep my eye out for that. I mean, as long as I'm confident in it, and I guess that is something that could be spelled by whether or not we get to play the closed alpha or not. I could see myself paying good money, like the most expensive version, personally. I know not everyone inherently goes in for that. Even if they like are really confident in something, they're not inherently like, I'm gonna get the the biggest package, right? Like the ultimate edition. But I think in this case, as a show of love, as long as I'm confident, I can see myself going for like whatever the most expensive version is. I mean, even if it might not launch with multiple versions, but we'll see. Anyway, obviously I brought up the closed alpha briefly there, and we don't have to talk about that. But obviously, as far as like movement, motion in the ocean, as it were, or movement on the horizon, perhaps. Obviously, this isn't an on the horizon thing. Next week, 7th anniversary stream, obviously, that's happening, and we'll be there. We won't be there. We won't be on the stream, but we will, as always, be providing live commentary. But also, as always, our investment is skewered towards the sort of the tail end of the stream, as usual. Right?
Yeah.
Where we will hopefully. Now, I want to point out they said something in the original like anniversary event preview that I think makes perfect sense. It doesn't make me any less like interested in what they might show. But it was about how like we want to like manage expectations, and so like there aren't going to be any huge reveals. At the same time, it still entails, and this is also in writing, it still entails talking about like the future of the games. I think there's going to be both DRG and Roll. I don't know how much for DRG, but then also on stream, Aaron said that there would be a new roadmap published, and obviously at the moment what a roadmap is right. That's not like that's not a roadmap of like look at all these DRG updates, right? That's not there. This is like the Ghost Ship Publishing roadmap, but even then, I don't know how different that can really look, because the current Ghost Ship Publishing roadmap pretty much outlines the entire year, like fairly accurately. And as far as what I care to see, the only things that can change there are like more specific dates for things like the closed alpha or the game itself. So, I mean, I don't want to see like a massively changed roadmap. I think that's like something I definitely don't want to see is well, like last time, and it's something they achieved last time. I think we're kind of at the point where we don't want there to be any more bad news from these streams. It's not a good thing for them to bring with them anymore. And the last one didn't, and it felt good. It didn't show us anything crazy. It didn't bring any like insane good news either, but it brought comfort, and hopefully this one does the same. So all I'm really expecting is maybe a similar showcase for some other different parts of Road Core, and that's pretty much it. That's kind of what I want to see. I don't want anything crazy. Word on the closed alpha though would be nice as well, though, I think, because that's not too far off. So I think that's kind of the upper limit. It's like a bit more, some more stuff on Road Core. Certainly some stuff I think to like paint the picture of like visual differences as well. I think would be lovely. Like I know that's something they've been working on recently. Is like sort of different designs. So I wouldn't mind seeing stuff like from DRG that's been carried over, that's like finished perhaps. That'd be nice to see, and some word on the closed alpha. But I think that's kind of like it. Especially with what they said, like I'm not expecting some surprise like Deep Rock update anyway, and then they specifically say that there's not going to be any big reveal. So just everyone just manage your expectations. Hopefully it'll be nothing but good, but it's not going to like set your pants on fire either way, I think. But I think that does it. I think that does it. Unless you want to talk about Marvel Rivals.
The thing,
which I'm sure you do, but we obviously don't need to.
I don't know.
I don't think like I don't know if I could really do a Marvel Rivals like hero tier list. I don't think I can do that.
I don't think I can do it.
No, it's like what would it be? It's like how good they are.
Plus, it changes like constantly. It's not something you can just do. It's like every time they do a patch notes, you got to redo it, milk the views.
Milk the views.
No, yeah. I don't know. Gaming's eating pretty good at the moment, outside of Deep Rock Galactic and the Core and so on and so forth.
Well, so,
Lots of cool
obviously,
shit going on.
the road call will be a part of that because I think it's just like I think
Yeah, eventually.
a lot of people I think have very unfair like readings of like video games, like the video game like industry at the moment. I think the fact that there are still people who think I think there are a lot of people who still think it's like 2016, you know, which was like I think that was a bad time. Like the mid 2010s, the mid to like 2010s was kind of ass. That was like the height of companies really exercising how greedy they could be, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff hasn't gone away, but so much more companies with integrity have risen in that time though to now, including some AAA developers. And I think, and it's really disheartening when you see people try to basically shoot down what are very clearly quite substantial and like impassioned projects. I'm talking about Avowed. I'm talking about like seeing people give that game shit is like annoying because this game is not the problem. If you think there are problems with gaming right now, Avowed is not the problem. And I off the top of my head, I can't point to exactly what is. It's just not this. That's all I can say.
I think, I don't know. Probably the main current problem with gaming is that they overexpanded during COVID, and now like companies are constantly closing down and firing
Yes,
people.
so that's the problem. That's the problem with the industry. Like layoffs and these, it's happening a lot, and it's quite concerning in a lot of cases. But I think, in terms of what's being put out, if you're like, oh, there's no good games, there's nothing coming either. It's like, yeah, you're dumb. You're dumb, deaf, and blind, aren't you? You're dumb, deaf. There's so many good games, and there are a lot of games coming out too. This is gonna be, I think it's gonna be a good year, actually. It's a good start already, to be honest. Got Doom, got Claire Obscura Expedition 33, and Roadcore, and that's like the four horsemen, really. It's like the four. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not yet.
Not yet.
It is coming out of your ass.
Go to the bathroom.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. That tells me something. That tells me we got to go to the bathroom.
It is coming out of our ass.
Yeah. So what's coming out my mouth? Nothing. It's so dry. All right. If you enjoyed this episode of Bad Vision Podcast, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you want to see more stuff like this, and you want to stay on top of everything to do with Deep Rock and Roadcore and World Monkey News, because I cover that now. Then please make sure to click the bell.
You keeping track of the random chimp events? Is
Yeah.
What that was?
Yeah, so it's called the RCA. Wait. RCEOR. Random chimp event.
Random chimp event.
Random chimp event observation report. There was a random chimp event somewhat recently.
There always is.
But not much came of it. No, there isn't always. That's the point. It's random.
Yeah, but it's random, but it's like always.
Thank you to our loyal member, Boxbox Scoot. And we'll see you next time for some random chimp event discussion. I mean, honestly, if something happens like crazy in the world of chimps, we'll bring it up. We'll bring it up next time. We'll bring it up. We will. But that's not real. I'm not actually going to be doing. I'm not going to do random chimp event reports. Okay. All right. I almost, I almost ended it by disconnecting. That wouldn't have been. That was my first instinct, was to click the disconnect on Discord. But I think I actually need to click this button on here on OBS that says stop recording. Yeah, I think I'll click that one.